The first policy up is recommended draft policy ARIN-2016-3, alternative simplified criteria for justifying small IPv4 transfers. I will do the staff introduction and then have David Huberman, who's the ARIN Advisory Council shepherd for the policy, come up and give the AC presentation. So, this policy was proposed in April 2016. Proposed policies get published on the mailing list. This was ARIN Proposal 228. The AC shepherds, David Huberman and Owen DeLong, were assigned to it. They're the ones who helped work it through the process of policy development with the community. It was presented at ARIN 38, our last meeting in Dallas. It was advanced in February to recommended draft policy status, which means the Advisory Council was of the opinion that it meets the criteria necessary. It has community support, it's technically sound. And it enables fair and equitable number resource management. The text is in your discussion guide and online. Discussion guide. In your discussion guide, 2016-3. Staff does a staff and legal review. We actually, when asked by the Advisory Council, we look at the proposed policy and we take a look and see how would we implement this and what would it mean, how would it end up in the manual. And we go back and we give that back to the Advisory Council. It's published online so that people can see that our interpretation of the policy matches what they intended the policy to do. Amazingly, the two don't line up all the time. We point out places of ambiguity and similar. Staff understanding of Draft Policy 2016-3, it allows organizations to double the size of their current IPv4 address space holdings, up to and including a /16, through an 8.3 or 8.4 specified transfer without a needs assessment being conducted by ARIN staff, as long as they can demonstrate 80% utilization of their current holdings. Organizations would still be able to qualify under the current policy by showing 24-month need, which is the current practice. The policy, staff can implement it as written. There's no ambiguities. The legal assessment, there's no material legal issues. It's a policy for administering number resources. You are the folks that set that. If you change it, we operate according to the new policy. Resource impact. When we go, if this ends up being adopted, then we'll have to implement it. The implementation will take about 3 months from when the ARIN Board of Trustees ratifies the policy. We update the staff guidelines. We update our internal procedures for processing these requests. We'll have to update our staff training material. And now I'll turn it over to David Huberman of the ARIN Advisory Council to give their presentation. Good morning, sir.
Hi, good morning, everyone. David Huberman from the ARIN Advisory Council. In October, at the ARIN meeting in Dallas, and following that, we, as a community, implemented a new transfer policy. We called it at the time 2016-5. And what this policy does is it rearranges Section 8 and adds new qualifying criteria for when you wish to receive IPv4 number resources into your account. You now qualify by demonstrating to the ARIN staff in a ticket that you will use 50% of the address space that you're requesting within 2 years. So from a certain perspective, that means you can request probably up to a 4-year supply of IP addresses. This was a pretty big change, and this went into effect in the NRPM at the end of February. Now we're looking at making slight adjustments to that. We are looking to add a new section to this new NRPM 8.5, which adds an alternative set of criteria which applies only to some organizations. It boils down to if an organization is using 80% of all existing address holdings in an account, you can double your holdings up to a /16 without a needs assessment. This means that if you have a /20 worth of IP addresses today that you're using 80% of them, and you wish to go out to the market and add more number resources to your account, you can double, you can go out and get up to a /20 worth of addresses, go to ARIN and say, hey, I'd like to move these into my account, and there will be no needs evaluation. We have time boxed this a little bit. There is a hard cap on this of a /16, so you may not request more than a /16 of addresses to be moved into your account under this process. Anytime, only once over a 6-month period, and it's a rolling 6-month period. So on the mailing list, when this was discussed, there was a little bit of resistance from one of the co-authors of the original policy proposal on this time boxing, as the author felt it didn't account for the long-term growth of an organization. However, after much discussion, that author has submitted a new policy proposal, which will be discussed, I believe, tomorrow, which is in a draft state to address this. I've put an important bullet point here. When we look at the history of 8.3 and 8.4 transfers since their inception, approximately 97% of them are potentially eligible to qualify under this new criteria. That doesn't take into account the time boxing, and there'll be some exceptions here and there. But what's interesting about this is this was meant as incremental change. This was an idea of, let's ease up the needs evaluation just a little bit, and let's help the little guys. Let's help some of the folks who are doing small transfers move in a small amount of space into their account without a needs evaluation. But what winds up being interesting is it affects almost everybody. So that's where 2016-3 is today. In Dallas, when it was presented, there was a very strong consensus in the room that you wanted the AC to continue working on it. We've worked on it. The text is as is in your discussion guide, and the floor is now open.
Thank you, David. John, we're going to have you move over a bit. There's only one United Economy seat of space here. So good morning. You can stay. So just about, this is our first policy before we get speaking. For those, lots of new faces, which is great to see. If you have not ever looked before, I'd urge you to look at the great flow chart on page 24 of your guide, which gives you the beautiful life of a policy. And in this case, we're dealing with a recommended draft policy. So we're all the way down here at step 5. The important part that I'll note about that is that this is the last time you possibly could see this policy at a meeting. So this is a very important time for you to give input. So at this point, all the microphones are open. I'd ask you to approach a microphone, state your name, organization, whether you are in support or against this policy, and then you can make any comment you wish against that, towards that. And with that, I'll go to the far microphone.
Good morning. This is Donnie Roisman from SoftLayer, IBM. First of all, thank you, David and Owen, for shepherding this this policy proposal through. I agree. I think this should happen. I think we're not going far enough. As you know, I'm a huge proponent of eliminating all needs-based justification for transfers. I do accept this as a good incremental step. I think we should definitely put it in place. And I'm hoping that once the community in general becomes comfortable with this, we can take the next necessary step, which is simplifying it even further and eliminating all needs-based justification for 8.3 and 8.4 transfers.
Thank you very much. Rear microphone.
Kevin Bloomberg, The Wire. Question for you, John. You mentioned there was a legal concern about the word small that was not brought up on the notes. It's an editorial, I wanted to confirm that's an editorial change because it's just in the title, it's not actually substantive.
Small's a judgment word, okay? And so the point is, if you put small in the title, some people may say, I read the title, I saw the word, I wasn't sure whether that applied or not. I didn't think that was small. I would have gotten more involved if I had known you were talking a /16. That's huge, sir, huge. How dare you mislabel this proposal? Something like that. So we prefer not to have judgment words where they can be avoided.
Thank you, but my question was, because it's the title, that would be considered an editorial change?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so I support the policy as written. My biggest thing to all of this is not going to change the requirement for an organization to show the space that they're using. There's still a lot of work that an organization is going to have to do to prove to ARIN that they are at 80%. But to me, what it's really saving is the having to jump through hoops to explain to ARIN how I'm going to use that space over the next 2 years. Showing how I'm using my space is easy. I have to do that because I need to justify it to myself. The jumping through hoops of trying to prove to everybody or prove to staff how I'm going to use the space is the complete waste of time. And I think setting it at a 16, getting it for 97% of the people, or whatever the number may be, is the absolutely right way to go.
Thank you. So we are lacking people at a in-person microphone. We hopefully may also have some people remotely. We have our scribe at the end. No one on the tubes, Chris. So it's very important you approach and give comments, and it's fine also to approach and say, I'm in favor, I'm against, to just leave it at that. But this is very important information for the AC because they will need to decide at their next meeting whether or not this policy should continue into the process and become a final policy or not. So we'll make a... Yes. We will also have a vote at the end, but I'm trying to encourage a little bit of input. I know many of you probably woken up at 4:55 a.m. for tornado warnings, but let's try and... We will close the microphones in a few seconds, give any people on the tubes the last chance to type as the music starts to blare loudly. We are in New Orleans. It's probably a parade. Okay, the microphones are closed. We'll thank David for the presentation. So again, a little bit of explanation for first time, as this is the first time for some of you, is that we will now ask a question. The question will be, are you in favor of the advisory council advancing this proposal? I will first ask for, in the room, to hold your hand up high if you're in support, put it down, and then for those against. We have our expert counters in the back, and we also have our online counting as well. So, all those in favor of advancing this policy, actually, sorry, I did not check. Are the counters ready? I always ask, oh, good, thank you. I'd hate to do that. So, if you are in the room and can hear the sound of my voice, even online, if you are in favor of this policy advancing, please raise your hand nice and high, one hand. Please keep it up until I ask you to lower it. We are counting away. If you are online, please indicate now and you will be also counted. We just got to give also a little bit of time for the online because there's that little bit of delay. Not as much as it used to be. It used to be that old half minute, but we are good. You may lower your hand. There we go. And if you are opposed to this policy advancing, please raise your hand nice and high. Thank you very much. You can lower it. We will just need one moment while the tabulation occurs, and including online. And then it looks like, are we going to get an extended break, or are we going to try and do something? Extended break. Ooh. More caffeine. Now I hope this is an encouragement not to comment. You know, we might have to start sticking extra policies in if. All right. On the matter of ARIN 2016-3, alternative simplified criteria for justifying small IPv transfers. The results of our poll: 50 in favor, 1 against, with 144 people in the room and online. Thank you very much for your participation. This will be provided to the advisory council, and I will turn it back on to John for the break.
Thank you, Paul. Okay. Wow. I wish all policies went like this.